Om Mani Padme Hum. Death. Everybody has this monster, this demon. Everybody has that monster. Everybody. He is with us all the time with us. Everybody has that monster, and that monster, from the very beginning of our lives, tries to eat us. He starts to eat us from the beginning. When he finishes eating us, that is the time we die. How does he eat us? We don't know he's eating us. You don't know, but he makes you older and older, older and older, older and older. He eats your health quickly, eats your youth and good health. He eats and eats and eats until sometime the strength of the body finishes. Then he is finished. We have this monster all the time together with us. He is our nature. And that is what our nature is. We cannot avoid that nature. And we have it all the time. And that nature finishes us. This Geshe Lobsang talking on the Wheel of Life. And the Buddhist Wheel of Life and Death is appropriate this week because we're studying death. We're studying the tarot understanding of death. But as we've discussed throughout the course, the tarot cards open into vast terrains. Essentially, all human discussion on this topic is fair play. So we are talking about the general umbrella that is the concept, the discussion of death. So this is something that's so universal to human experience that we all have thoughts about it. It overshadows us in a way, and casts the shadow that makes a life. Without facing mortality, what happens is a denial of the imminent finitude, if you will, of our lives. And that denial does something very interesting. It depressurizes, it depletes, it misappropriates the life force. It turns out that the life force needs a awareness of mortality to stay vivid. Without the awareness of mortality, and there's many different ways of cheating our awareness of the fact of mortality, anything from fatuous ideas of an afterlife to various different kinds of ignorance, even to a concept of a reincarnation. There's different ways that these things can depressurize the vividness, vivid living, if you will. So how do we have a larger picture than ourselves, coupled with vivid living? And of course, when it comes to the afterlife, because we can say for certain that the energy that constitutes us is not destroyed or removed from the universe when we die. We can also say for certain that there is awareness in the universe. Now, sometimes, of course, people will say, well, awareness is a particular faculty of a human being, and the awareness emerges and the body emerges, and or animals, if you will. I don't subscribe to this point of view. So we're going to universalize awareness. This is the place where I will depart from. The energy and awareness are universals. And so from that paradigm, obviously, there is a sense of immortality, but of what sort? We choose our afterlives in ways that reflect, we choose to frame them, if you will, in ways that reflect who we are to become, because they act really as these, ultimate sort of shape of our directions, our vectors in time. So let me talk a little bit more about the wheel of life and why I started this with the 6-syllable mantra. So while this is a tarot course, I am veering a little bit into different religious traditions. I highly recommend making an examination of the Buddhist wheel of life. The Buddhist wheel of life is basically this diagram. This has been passed on for ages and ages and ages, and it's you could take it as a psychological or metaphysical diagram. What it has is a monster, which represents death, holding this great wheel. And I'm sure you can get a better copy of this on the internet, but there is in the very center a peacock, a boar, and a serpent. Sometimes a pig, a rooster, and a serpent. And then there's these guys who are kind of being dragged down in the darkness, and these guys who are climbing up from the darkness into the light. So there's a yin-yang motif around this triple motif of the pig, the rooster, and the snake. And then outside this is 6 chambers. So this is a hexagon, right? So this actually does lend itself to recreational mathematics, as we will see. So there's a hexagon of 6 worlds, and these are actually the world into which the soul is born, according to Buddhist psychology. And then finally, around the outside is the 12 links of codependent interrelation, and these are the different phenomena that, such as karmic formations and grasping, and it's a chain of phenomenon that lead to our shall we say, compulsive, continuous return to partially conscious living. And ignorance, of course, is the great enemy of, and the starting point of this samsara, of suffering, right? This eternal return of suffering. And it's ignorance and ignorance of our nature that causes this suffering to perpetuate itself, because we grasp, we reify our particularities, and we grasp. And as we grasp, we're drawn into the clutches of this this wheel. And we could talk about this for a lot longer than this video and then this week, but let's just entertain this idea, because it's very similar to the Kabbalistic idea of the tzimtzum, right? The breakage of universal wholeness into fragmented pockets that are isolated. These reifications that are the root cause of suffering. And so in both traditions, there is a search for medicine. And both traditions, there's also the idea of a primordial plenum. The Buddhist tradition has this concept of the sunyata, the luminous void, and of course the Kabbalistic tradition has the concept of the Ein Sof. So how do we sort of return and recognize our nature as not other than this luminous void? Again, where we can say awareness and energy are incontrovertibly universal. This is what practice is required for, right? So it's one thing to know this stuff, one thing to discuss this stuff. We are what we practice continuously. So an intellectual understanding of the Buddhist mechanism, an intellectual understanding of the Kabbalistic mechanism does not translate into a constant emotional and embodied realization of these truths. We have to practice in order to achieve that realization. There are many different ways of practicing. I want to focus. So the three animals at the center, we'll just say what they are. They're greed, delusion, and hatred. And I spoke about that in the temperance card, because which we just recently worked with, because there was this idea of the three bowls, right? Bowl representing greed has a hole in it, bowl representing delusion is turned upside down, and bowl representing hatred is filled with guck. So you clean out the bowl with hatred, you turn the inverted bowl, which circumscribes a kind of isolated self, you turn it up, you get ready to receive, again meaning Kabbalah, and then you can nest the cleaned out bowl, meaning cleansing yourself of toxic habits, and then finally you can place the bowl with a hole in it on top of it. So nesting these three bowls together and producing capacity to receive, and that final is that hunger. So these three poisons can be ameliorated through practice, and this is a kind of a tikkun. The six worlds. The six worlds are the world of the gods, the world of the asuras, the world of human beings, the world of the animals, the world of the hungry ghosts, and the hell realms. So these are the places we can be reborn into it. So you can think about this as we metaphysically reincarnate between lifetime and lifetime and lifetime, we may find ourselves in one of these six worlds. Or we can look at it as these are the six perceptual paradigms that we wake up into from day to day and seem to have a total amnesia of other states of mind. Isn't that interesting? I mean, intellectually we can know all this stuff, but emotionally we seem to have profound amnesias. We forget what it's like to feel enlivened by something. We can get so caught up we find emotional states easy to forget, easy to lose contact with, right? Love and inspiration, and there are fleeting mindsets that we lose. And so what are we doing with Taro? What are we doing with all of this stuff, this practice? We're actually learning how to rediscover this mind states. We're learning where they are on the map. We're doing all this art. We're mapping out the emotional, spiritual territory so that we can recover these mind states when we need to. Every single moment in the tarot is an example of this, and this wheel is no different. It's this map of these six mind states, if you will, or paradigmatic kind of worlds that we find ourselves born into, often without memory of having been in the others. And this causes a problem, because the behaviors that occur from being amnesiac in one of the worlds are what drives the turning of the wheel itself. So, for example, let's say you're born into a heaven realm. It's the best day ever. Everything's good. You're having a lot of praise heaped on you. You are at the top of your game. You have no desire to change. You are absolutely at the peak, and also likely to see yourself as a god, as the best, and so on. So. This is the God realm. And the God realm, of course, has this this drawback of almost disempathy, right? The power is so strong, the pleasure is so great that those who are in the God realm can fall victim to hubris. And then there's the Asuras. So the Asuras are the angry gods, and they're basically the forces that are saying, "Hold on, these gods are kind of running amok, and they're sitting around in their Olympus or wherever, and they're arrogant and they're presumptuous, and we're going to rebel against them." So they're the rebellious gods, and they were once the gods, right? So you can have the Titans, right? The Titans. Battling against the gods of Olympus, or in the Hindu myth, I believe Ravana and there's a whole class of sort of rebellious anti-gods, and of course the myth of the fallen angels and Satan and so on. These energies, these are the raging against the machine kind of idea. Is that and it's governed by a righteous sort of battle, right? We're gonna break the we're gonna break these arrogant gods' stranglehold on the world. So this rebellious energy, and then there's the human realm. In the human realm, so. I think we're looking now. Where are we here? This is almost a little reverse from. So this is this here, if I'm not mistaken. This is a slightly different diagram than what I'm used to. Usually, what it is God realm is at the top, and then the Asuras is to the right of it. And then to the left of it is a human realm. And the human realm, of course, is considered the place where we can actually have the insight that will lead to escape from the wheel. Because we're subject to old age, sickness, and death. We're subject to suffering. And we can have a moment of realization of where that comes from. So we have pleasures. So it's a mixed realm. And I think the reason it's the sort of the key in the idea of a human rebirth, of those mind states where we have the proportions in order. We're not too arrogant, we're not too rebellious, we're not too unconscious, we're not too rage obsessed or depressed, we're not too addicted. We're there. We're having pleasure. We're having suffering. We're awake. And there's, in that kind of space, there's almost like a nice airy. The human realm has a kind of an honesty to it, and we can be honest with ourselves there. And that's the key to it. Is this place where we can be honest. Just to whip through the others, there's the realm of the animals, which are considered unconscious. So when we're animalistic, we're just running on instinct. There's a realm of the hungry ghosts who are satisfying, a forever empty kind of stomach. Their necks are too small to imbibe what they desire. So addicts and addiction, and then finally the hells, which are places that are subsumed with suffering and depression and violation and so. These are all places you can get stuck in. So what is the 6-syllable mantra? The 6-syllable mantra is the mantra of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, otherwise known as Chenrezig or Kuan Yin. The Dalai Lama is said to be the 14th incarnation of Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is the bodhisattva of compassion, meaning Avalokiteshvara can be aware of all the activity of the beings in all the worlds and feel for them. So this compassion is what allows this being to traverse the worlds. And so Om Mani Padme Hum is Om is the world of the gods, Ma is the world of the Asuras, Ni is the world of the humans, Pad is the world of the animals, Me, again, is the world of the hungry ghosts, and Hom is the world of the hells. So Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum is an acceleration of awareness that allows that consciousness to create a seed in each of these worlds. And that seed is the seed of recollection, the seed of remembrance. In a way, we're taking the six and opening up a seventh, which is this Bodic consciousness that can recognize I'm in the hell realm now, like a lucid dream. This is in many ways, and we'll get to this, like learning how to create cues within dreaming so that we can go lucid. And so we're going to use Om Mani Padme Hum in practice as a way of encountering the theme of the death card, because it's a way of dying continuously and being reborn continuously, but also creating and keeping and fostering perspective, which is the path of the bodhisattva, and it's a form of tikkun, which is the path of the tzaddik. So this is a place where they come together. And the ultimate aim is to ameliorate the forces of greed, delusion, and hatred, which are perpetuating suffering. Okay, so this is the Buddhist side of this. So what are we talking about with the death card? We've got a bunch of different versions here. This is a version I did many years ago. And I started this deck when I was traveling in Austria. We have a lovely Italian deck, classic kind of Grim Reaper. But it's neat because look at all the implements down there, right? Everything from shields to swords to books to papal material to easels, right? So this is the universality of death. That's really what's happening here. Mine is a vision of course, crossing a river, and we'll talk about that more. Here is a very alchemical, very interesting, very alchemical image, and we see this green dragon wrapping around the corpse. This is, of course, putrefaction, right? The green dragon is a very alchemical symbol. Putrefaction is part of the alchemical process, fermentation. So, in a way, we've got the prima materia from the devil. We have encased it, if you will, in a crucible in the temperance, and now it's undergoing a putrefaction. Let's have a look here. Very similar to the Rider-Waite theme, of course, the beheadings, right? And what is a head? A head is the unity of the body, right? So the beheading is the breaking up the body. The body's unity, just like the crown in the tower. But of course, the energy is neither created nor destroyed. So we can be dismembered, and yet our energy quality remains. Which is key to this path. This path is actually about building a face towards mortality, wherein we learn to live in such a way to cultivate an energy to be released at death, like a pulse. Or imagine this, if life was entirely about the process of sourcing, forging, and finally ringing a silver bell. Whole life spent learning the art, decorating the bell, finding the ore, getting everything together, and then at the very end of life, we've produced this bell. And when we die, we ring it. And that tone is the point of life. That's the purpose of life, is to hit that tone with the greatest beauty, the greatest clarity, the greatest purity we can, because that is what will cause it to carry. And so this is a metaphor that I'm giving about taking care within life to prepare the energy release upon death. Another example of energy release upon death is this amazing image of death from the Visconti Sforza, and taking the left-right symbolism, right, looking down towards the past, but every bit of the body is arced towards the future, towards the right. And you can see he's got a bow and an arrow. So imagine you're sort of, you need to make a bridge. You need to fire a arrow across a ravine. And so life is about engagement. Let's say you just go, and that arrow goes into the ravine. You can't get it across without emotional, energetic engagement. You just go along without a sense of aim or purpose beyond your life. Then the energy of life just gets kind of sunk into this kind of pit of incoherence, right? Of entropy. Really, the entropy dominates. Whereas if you actually can fire that arrow all the way across and hit the target, then you can hook a rope up, and then you can ferry supplies over, and then bit by bit you can create a new existence. So there is in life this need to find your target, find your aim, and to do those things that facilitate focusing all your energy towards that release point, just like ringing the bell, firing the arrow. Here we have again another classic Reaper with lots of heads. Dude has lots of bodies and heads. Yeah. This one's super old, right? So this is probably the oldest image that I have. Certainly, this one comes a little later, but from the same tradition, probably the same workshop, Beneficio Bembo. But these are originals. It's interesting. Both still extant, thank goodness, because other ones are missing, but those are both still extant, giving us these. Really, actually, it's the Carrie Yale that seems to have the themes that are most taken up in modern tarot. There's this death figure you don't see so much, but I like it. Similar to the Strength card. Okay, and of course we have featuring our very own companion in the path and friend in the path, Elise Ursa's Blood and Ink Tarot. Beautiful and very vivid image of the Reaper. Rider Waite. I mean, all of the themes we see, including the river in the background with a boat crossing it. The river is very important for my understanding of this card. The flag with the five petaled rose. We see the 5-petaled rose right here in the back. The back card is the 79th image of the tarot, and it's actually sometimes it's absolutely crucial. It's a glyph of synthesis. So this can help us see, reversals, but also it's got 5-petaled rose upright above and within, inverse, and there is this cascading sort of tunnel of pentagrams that goes into itself. If you connect all the lines of the pentagon inside of a pentagram and then keep going, it fractally regresses into itself, much like an infinite series of life-death moments. So before I before I forget, I'm going to give you this, which is die daily. What does that mean? It means every day is essentially a full lifetime. We're born in the morning, and then we live through the day, right? Working to draw back the arrow, working to forge the bellow, and then be prepared to die when you go to sleep. And that release of control, that release to the accumulated energy, and following that line that has been developed in life through the death of sleep, and then into a reincarnation the following morning. It could be that we're born into just slightly different worlds, little adjacent universes with, a few things different. And let's say we want to eventually get to a place where very, very many things are different. We do that through daily returning to the path and daily moving to a universe that's just slightly more adjacent to the desired universe. Let's say a universe in which human beings are at peace with themselves and the environment. This is possible, but it's not adjacent to our world. So by living a lifetime in a day, and taking that and dedicating that energy, ringing that bell as I go to sleep, the next day I wake up in a world that's ever more slightly closer towards that place. And then every day, drop by drop, the bucket is filled. And lifetime by lifetime, which then creates this interesting thing. We have lifetimes within a physical life, and then lifetimes beyond a physical life, and probably lifetimes within lifetimes within lifetimes. I don't think it's linear. I think it's fractal, and that this immortality will ultimately survive till the ends of the universe. But it can have different grades. It can be we can allow ourselves to be completely dissolved into entropy. Or what life ultimately is a negentropic movement upstream. So you see the stream flows in one direction, but the eddies flow upstream, the turbulences, and I'm going to make a case that life is about these turbulences that move upstream. It's about upstream movement towards the source. There's the river that goes from the spring to the ocean. And we are to swim upstream. Before I really get more into this discussion, I just want to look at Crowley's, because Crowley's is a really good depiction of how death is linked to karma and linked to, again, the samsara. Look at all these incarnations, being born and dying and being born and dying. And you can see down here the snake and the scorpion, and I believe the fish. Fish is important. Nun means fish. And you see everything's entangled here. But death itself has a portion of its motif, an eagle, and the head of the eagle is actually apart from the wings. It's completely other. It is ascended, if you will. It has been distilled. So there is a consciousness. This is telling us that there is an awareness that is Bodic, essentially, that is connected to the Ein Sof, that allows this entangled continuum of eternal return to play out, because it is awake. And so in this path is the potential of awakening. And of course, if you read the Bardo Todal, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, you know that 6 worlds are featured in there. But right at the beginning, there's an opportunity to go into the bright light. And then those who do not will have various different grades of light. And eventually, of course, the last option is into the hell realms. And that sort of determines whether you have an opportunity for enlightenment, or lucidity within a lifetime, or where, I mean, it's mythology, but it's a very astute And it also points to the idea that life is quite dreamlike, right? If we live in a polyversal system, and our decisions are kind of blurring us between multiple universes, there's a dreamlike quality to reality. And I think anyone who works with magic recognizes that the reality bends. It's dreamlike. It's not so fluid you can just make up whatever. There's kind of, I don't know, intersubjective forces that create inertias, but intensity of magical emotion directed has an ability to communicate with a dream. And the idea is we want this to be opening up more and more and more options for ourselves and for those beyond us and for the universe, because we're the universe expressing itself within the universe. And so airing that out, opening that up, gives us liberation and freedom and happiness. And this is, again, something we share with the tzaddikim and with the bodhisattvas. And here is, of course, another image of death, very, very much connected to the thought that we've got this scorpion that also looks like a mandrake root, and skulls, and it's quite. But that same eagle, right? That same eagle with the eagle symbol as a Scorpio, but this eagle has this sort of head that's separated from the wings, so we've got a lot going on here. So let's return to this metaphor of the river. So the river is life, and you get into the river, and you can do nothing. You can just drift and let the current carry you to the sea. What does that mean? That means your energy is not invested at all in anything beyond life. It dissipates completely. And eventually it dissolves. And lucidity isn't achieved. There's just a kind of disillusion into the dream itself. Another strategy is to do exactly, follow the rules, go right straight across. Don't question, don't experiment. Just cross life, get through life. Get your job, you do your thing, but you're just going straight across life. But the thing is that the current will carry you downstream. The current will, if you're just going for neutral, you'll actually be displaced downstream. So you'll end up losing ground. And lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, gradually, if you're aiming for mediocrity, the same result will be that this awareness will eventually be dissolved. And remember, this can occur in a single human lifetime, as well as across multiple lifetimes and across multiple lifetimes of multiple lifetimes. If a life encapsulates many lifetimes, then what about multiple incarnations? Maybe you're a certain energy for 10,000 incarnations, and then that works itself into so we're talking about meta incarnations and meta incarnations, and think about how it all scales up to the big the all commensurating whole, Spinoza's divine totos, which itself is boundaryless. And so you can see how this kind of fits in, where we're modes of this infinity that are incarnate, but we can expect to return. And it's, even if we don't know we will, it is essentially it's a case of abductive reasoning. It's reasoning to best explanation. It has, reincarnation seems to have the most, not just explanatory power, but the most motivating utility, if you will. I just recently read that the truth is that which is believed sincerely, which means that truth and reality are actually not necessarily the same thing. So truth needs to work its way towards reality by being continuously open to revise itself and to communicate. And I find that interesting. So this idea of the stream, the river, we can employ a strategy where we angle upstream. We face into the current. We take on challenges. We allow, we take on more than the bare minimum. And that's, at a certain point, that'll get us straight across, and we can just keep going back and forth at a certain moment. But at a certain angle of inclination, when we're really pushing in, then we're actually able to make ground. So each incarnation, we leave the world a little bit better. We reincarnate into, remember, day to day, lifetime to lifetime, whatever. We reincarnate into a place which we have left a legacy. So every day, leave yourself a legacy. And of course, that steeper incline. Now, that steep incline can get so steep that you don't make the other side. That's where the stress, because it's stress, right? That's where the stress can break you, and then, of course, dissolution. So being aware of that line, of that angle, and then zigzagging, kind of like the tree, up towards the source. So these are all parts of the metaphor. But then there's the salmon. And the salmon, in a way, completes the metaphor. The salmon, I mean, if the zigzagger up the stream is the bodhisattva, the salmon's like the Buddha. Because the salmon is of the ocean and of the stream and of the spring. And the salmon never leaves the river. The salmon remembers the source and lives and dies within life. And this is something I think we can ultimately achieve, to be transformed into the salmon. I'm thinking of the salmon of knowledge in the Druidic mythos, that swims upstream to the hazel grove and and eats the nuts, the hazelnuts, which are the nuts of wisdom. To become transformed into a salmon, into a creature that can consciously and continuously reincarnate, that is no different than the stream itself. That's an extraordinary idea. I'll leave that there. But I will remind you that the water, or that death is assigned to Nun. It's the fish. And sometimes the fish is seen as a sacrificial animal, and sure, the salmon is sacrificial. Salmon's immortality comes at the price of being prey. But this sacrifice there's an immortality in this idea of this upstream, this being that is the upstream migration to the source where it spawns. I find that extraordinary. So I'll leave that to you to sort of think about how that might fit into the concept of death. There's some cool gematrias. Let me think that I want to. There's a few more things I want to say. Yes. Okay. So all right. So here we're looking at the Tree of Life, and in the Tree of Life, there are really three regions. I want to draw one of these out for you because I don't feel like I don't have my. So there's three key regions. So here we have a nice little Tree of Life, and we have in the process. Oh no, got that wrong. We have in the process of our course so far completed all of these paths, right? You can see we did the world, the judgment, the sun, the moon, the star, the tower, the devil, temperance, and then here is death. So you can see that this completes a major structure in the tree. Beyond this, of course, we're connected to temperance. Beyond this is the rest of the tree. like so. And there are two more regions. One of them is a sort of a demi-region. It looks like this M. This is the bridge. And the bridge actually has also surface. Although this is kind of, I consider this as part of the upper face. So these are the faces of the tree. The lower, the mid, and the upper face. Sometimes called micro and macro prosopis. And I'm going to add this idea of mesoprosopis. Prosopis being face, meso being middle. So macroprosopis, the great face, microprosopis, the lesser face, the little face, and then mesoprosopis, the middling face. So what is a face? It's an interesting thing. We think, okay, I have a face. But do you really? Because a face, this is not a face, and this is not a face, and this is not a face. Face is an assemblage of elements, but it in itself, it doesn't exist. Funny. Deleuze and Guattari talk about facialization as the assembling of elements around a kind of a black hole. Because a face is a very interesting thing. It's not an organ, but it's a thing we're said to possess. But how can we possess something that is really just a working together of concrete elements? But the face itself is not a thing. It's a cooperation. Face is related to the word fascist. Fasces. Fasces were bundles of rods held together to symbolize power, to symbolize the unification of power. This is a Roman concept, the fasces. And also connected to the word faggot, right, which is a bundle of sticks, and then became a slur for gay people. But this concept of binding multiple rods together implies this idea of a cooperation of elements. How did the Nazis achieve this? The fascists and the neo-fascists, they achieve it through aesthetics, through basically replacing the concept of truth with the concept of the beautiful. And so they would play Wagner in the streets, and they had Goebbels. Goebbels was a propaganda minister for the Nazis, and he was a theater graduate, and of course Hitler was a visual artist, they put their art towards the manipulation of people. And the binding of people together into a face. And whose face is that? It's the face of Hitler. It's the face of the dictator. And so fascism is a type of facialization, the creating of a face of the people around a dictator. And whenever you see a country where where the leader is in a way the face of the country, that is fundamentally a fascist kind of a thing. Now, faces are not always bad. So there's a concept in China of winning and losing face, right? Face is this fluid quantity that you need to cultivate, right? If you lose face, you lose social leverage. If you gain face, you have face is power. And so the tree of life and the tarot on the tree of life enables us to produce three faces. And one face is an assemblage of energies that composes ourselves to the outer world. This is the lower face. This is microprosopis. This is what we have just completed. And we have just completed it with a meditation on mortality. Mortality caps everything off. If you think about it, the world and the judgment and the sun and the star, and the moon and the star and the tower and the devil and the temperance, and then finally death. There's this beautiful arc where they close, and they close in this concept of ringing the bell, of facing our mortality. And I don't mean perfecting everything. That's where you go so far up the stream that you're going straight in and you break, right? You don't get to perfection through strain. You get through perfection, that angle, that upstream angle. And eventually, when it descends on you, you will transform into a salmon. But until then, making the upstream angle towards the source is the way of engaging in perfection in the movement towards negentropy, towards perfection, because it's not about, of course, the destination. That's almost a cliche, but it's this process. So what is the death card about? It's about having this energetic turning towards the pressure of life, hormesis, as my Sifu will call it, right? The taking on little good stress, it produces, a robust living response. So the correct response to this card, which allows us, or this path rather, which allows us to compose a face to the world, a complete face to the world, which will be the assemblage of our energy towards the world, is our disposal towards our own mortality, and therefore respecting death. Not bringing it on ourselves, but also not trying to stave it off eternally in some kind of fearful way. Whatever it is that immortality truly is integrates death into it, because the universe has death in it, and the universe is immortal. And that's our path to immortality. It's not some immortality against the universe that will create a brittle and vain and doomed kind of displacement. It's a full integration. Right. So so there we have a philosophy of death that will allow us. So we practice this, right? We're not. This region now is open for us to practice. This is practicing our composition of our energies insofar as that composition intersects with the external world. The middling face, or the mesoprosopis, as I've called it, I also call the bridge, and it's this M in the middle, which looks like the Ehwaz rune, which is, of course, a rune for vehicle, horse. And this is interesting because this is like a vehicle. It's like a horse, because this is the region of the tree. These four paths are the region of the tree where it's no longer about the world, and it's no longer about the big picture. It's actually about the face to yourself, building a face towards yourself, building a bridge. What does this ultimately mean? It means integrity, and I think all of us can admit to being hypocritical in some ways, right? We hold other standards for others. We're not perfect. I am certainly not, and yet we work towards it. So this region is a place where we work towards integrity. We work towards having this stability that builds a space, because you can see this M is composed of the hangman, the justice, the wheel, and the hermit. And then strength is this next horizontal. So it really is the bracing for the emergence of strength. The horizontals are very much emergent qualities. They're not, they sort of happen when the pieces are in place, like three harmonics, boom, 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 and then the great harmonic. But we're not there yet. I'm kind of just talking about what's to come. The upper face is the face towards eternity, the face towards a heaven. So the face towards our particularity, the face towards our immortality, the face towards our mortality, or even the face towards our integrity, as the bridge between the face towards our mortality and the face towards our immortality. That's an interesting thing to think about. Integrity is the bridge between mortality and immortality. So I'll leave that to stew with you. We do have some more. Yeah, I mean, okay, so what are we talking about? 13s. So, we're talking about actual and figurative death, but those are sort of blending together, right? Because, I like to say to people, because the cliche, right, is, the cards come out and the death card comes out. Don't worry, it doesn't mean death. Yeah, I always say, oh, death card, yes. You know what that means? It means death. But not how you think it means death. Because it's about all the ways in which death affects us. It's not about prediction. I mean, if you're reading predictively, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, then yeah, okay, well, then you have to say, no, it doesn't mean you're going to die. But reading as a discussion is this. Okay, now the discussion of death is raised, and what is the concept? What does the discussion of death do? Well, it encourages living. When we think about death, it encourages us to live. So yeah. So I want to. I have a few more things we need to talk about. There's some gematrias here. Okay, let me make a second video because I'm actually I'm running out of time. My mortality here is quite poignant. I have a lot of tasks to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it at this. This is a sufficient discussion about death and about the purpose of death and ultimately where we are in this process. And we are composing the face towards life. And now, next week we're going to move towards this mesoprospis, this face towards our own integrity. But think about what this bell is that you need to build and ring, and how it's going to sound. That will represent a life that has been truly well used, and that's the key. Use your life well, because we are staring into the face of death. And my name is Dr. Peter Duchemin. This is the Forest of Life Venus calendar, week 19, the path of death.